When you come to Ponca Powwow, you hear that drum at a distance, and boy, there's something inside you. This is it. This is the Ponca Powwow, and it is Dompeau. There's just nothing like it.
For the last 150 years, our Ponca people gather, they dance, and they sing, and they celebrate our life and the gifts that God has blessed our people with.
The weekend celebration to me is so many things. You know, it's welcoming home those that may have moved away, those that have been gone for a while, and also honoring those that have gone on and continuing on our ways, our culture, and keeping that strong, and always keeping consideration those that aren't even here yet, those young ones that are coming, and making a way for them.
I think that the city of Ponca City, who derives its name from the Ponca tribe, is so blessed to be surrounded with such culturally enriched tribes who really just add to, you know, the food and the dance and the culture and the diversity of our city. And it's such a great event, and I know tons of people come from outside and come to support all of the tribes. And the Ponca tribe, especially the fancy dance, I know is their big thing. It's nationally known, and so it is such a special event that everyone cherishes and looks forward to, so it's a huge milestone.
Just coming back and dancing, just coming back and being a part of it, you know, just not being a spectator, being involved in it.
It feels good, you know, when you understand the songs, understand the singing, understand the meaning, the purpose of the drum and purpose of the gathering. Well, it's a good feeling. It gives you that feeling like, all right, it's here, you know, it's time. There was a time in our history and our lives that our people could converse with animals and spiritual beings.
Harry Buffalohead made a name for himself in the latter days of his life. He was interviewed by an anthropologist some years ago. This person had done some research in South America, Mexico and South America concerning the bird, phoenix. Said he went to various tribes of Indians throughout this continent, everywhere.
Looking for a home, looking for a certain type of people where he could call his home.
The Poncas believe that song, wow, that's where we say song, wow. And wow was a spirit.
He would watch and visit and see how different tribes were.
Went to every tribe, but they couldn't find the tribe that possessed all of those spiritual attributes that it was looking for. And these dealt with honesty, dealt with purity, holding things sacred. All of these synonyms that's derived from what we might say, what is good, that a man should practice on this earth. He came to the Poncas and he seen that they had all of those attributes of what is good. And so he said, I will go down and I will see how they are. He said, I'm going to live among these people. I can live there in peace. And so he came and he stayed with the Poncas. He said, so to this day, the Poncas can overnight make a song just that quick. There's no problem.
I heard it said that a lot of times we didn't keep our history in a written form or too much on a written form because they knew over time it would fade and go away. But they said our history could be kept within our songs. So we have songs of every type of situation, every type of activity, every type of event that took place. We have songs for it. So today we still sing some of the songs that are old, ancient. We don't know how far back they go, but they're old songs, and so but we still able to sing those. And we have a variety of dances that we still can perform because of our songs.
Well, I would think a lot of our songs have different words. Our songs and everything, especially our individual songs, and now that'll get a lot of family out in dancing.
The flag song, me being a veteran, Vietnam era and everything, you know, it hits me right here, especially since I'll be singing it. That's in all the songs that I've learned over 60, 70 years. Now they're gonna hear them. And to me, that's one of the best feelings that I know. Is singing that flag song Thursday morning. Nobody knows how many songs that, you know, that we have, because we can go back to 1800s, maybe back further than that.
Our Ponca songs have withstood time and are still sung today. There's many songs that we can't even identify how old they are because they came from a time when our people lived up north in Nebraska and beyond.
I've been singing around the drum. I was introduced and given my seat at the drum when I was 15 years old. I feel like, you know, whenever I was told I could go and sing, my grandmother always told me, you sing from your heart. You don't sing from up here. You're singing from your heart, because every song you're singing is a blessing. It's a prayer for healing. And that drum right there, that kuge, when you sing those songs, people feel it. Those words are very, very strong in our songs.
Yeah, and I think it's a healing process. There's times I don't feel well. And they always say, you know, if you don't feel good, you know, go out there to the drum, listen to the music, you know. And it is healing. You know, you get a good uplift, kind of like a spiritual uplift.
I do not think there is any tribe that can sing the way the Ponca tribe does, or has the songs the Ponca tribe has. Every time I hear the songs, I feel a spiritual essence or something flow through me.
Well, I think probably something that stands out very clear to me is the purpose of the powwow, of the dances and so on. I had taken some anthropology under Dr. Howard when I was in college at OSU. Dr. Brown and I came to the Ponca Reservation. I think it had to be probably about 1974, and we did interviews with the elders of the tribe. The one question we asked was, why did the Poncas have it? It started there because our children were going off to school. And that was a tradition of the tribe as part of our culture. Anytime you went on a trip or you were going to be away for a while, well, they had rituals that they performed for your safety and your well-being and your success. Some of them were going to Chilocco and Haskell, but they were tribal, mostly what we call Wanoshawachigaka. It means soldier dance. And the soldier dance tell some of the history of our tribe, and it relates to persons who did good in times of warfare. And it didn't really refer to here in Oklahoma or Indian Territory. It related to the time they lived in the north. And those songs are very, very old. We have hundreds of songs. So you can imagine every man that went off and did something, not necessarily to war now, because sometimes they were just good men. They talk about Ompojinga, for instance, Little Elk. Don't know who the man is, but they praise him. He's a good man. In fact, when he died, his closest friend was bereaved. He was bereaved for many, many months. Everybody noticed it, and so they made a song for Little Elk. Then there were others like him that did something for the tribe and maybe saved them from starving, or maybe helping somebody's child that might have drowned, or just everyday things that could have happened to good men, and they made songs for them. But I think it was mostly the soldier dance. They did a Heoska dance, and then they did a trot dance, which is also a Heoska dance. There's two of them. They call one trot dance, and the other one's called tiptoe dance. And somehow or other, it developed into a contest.
My understanding of our right to host the World Champion Fancy Dance Competition comes from a tribal member named Gus McDonald.
Uncle Gus, when They had the 1926, it was the first fancy dance, war dance championship.
Lawrence, Kansas, at Haskell was just now trying to start to build, add on to school, and when they finally got ready to break ground and do all that, they would finally reach their goal. Well, then they had a big celebration, and then they even put out words, "Oh, we're going to have a contest," you know. So everybody send your best dancer. And I heard that we were going to send two or three of them from here, and Gus was the only one that made it up there.
Whoever won it not only won that original trophy, but he also won the privilege of taking it home for perpetuity, the championship.
That tribe that he represented, well, from that point on, would be the host for future world championships. And so we won, you know, Ponca's won, Gus won it for behalf of the Poncas. That's why from that point on, 1926, was our annual powwow, we're the host of the World Championship. We didn't proclaim that ourselves, we were given that title, you know, so that's how that come about.
The one that came in second for that fancy dance up there was a Lakota, a standing bear. I remember that because as things got tougher and tougher and tougher over a few days and more contests, this dance had spread like wildfire.
A lot of people don't realize, but Poncas, when we lived up north, we shared this dance with tribes up north. We gave it to the Sioux and Yankton Sioux, and so they spread it among themselves. So while we were dancing down here, they too was dancing. So that fancy dance just kind of caught on real quick, kind of spread.
That contest had become, you know, widely scattered throughout the whole United States today, you know, and I noticed that those guys that go on what they call a powwow trail, they'll go to all these powwows contesting to try to win money, you know. Of course, if you're Oklahoma and you go up north, there's no chance you're going to win because they're going to let you win. But we're not that way. In fact, we've got one guy, I think he won 3 times. He's a Northern Cheyenne. Yeah, he won the World Championship down here at White Eagle. So we watch the dancing, the style and their ability and their agility and so on, you know, and so we kind of know. And but we're not prejudiced. We will elect somebody that does the job and does it well.
When it came into being, when Uncle and the others were in their late teens, and it got out there in various shows like Pawnee Bill's show, like the 101 and so many of the others, then everybody wanted to claim it. And the Ponca knew where it came from. Uncle Gus was born in 1898. Mama was born in 1914. And they were close to the oldest and the youngest of 10 children. And she said that during that time that you all know about was about, you know, we were confined. It was a POW camp here, this reservation was. With Uncle Gus, there came a time that they're wanting not just to run and have our shinny ceremonies. He danced in the last Ponca Sundance in 1909. He'd escaped from Carlisle by this time and made his way home by rail and by walking all that way. He only spoke our language, and he knew every blade of grass, what its name was, every kind of bug, every animal. According to what I was told by Grandpa Paul Roughface, by Uncle Gus, and by my mother, they had to hide to sing and dance. But at that time, they were out behind a barn because they had to hide, and they didn't even have a drum. They had something that they turned over and that they were singing songs with. In the manner of competition, of doing the fanciest steps that they could come up with, they began to challenge each other for who could do this and who could do that. As that was happening and they were singing new songs, making up new songs, and the drum was going faster and faster, thunderstorm started rolling in, and loud thunder and lightning, and there were horses in that corral right there. One of them happened to be a white horse. And as the drum got faster and faster and the thunder was exciting these horses so much, the horses began to do what horses do, to prance and dance and run and jump. Uncle Gus started watching him, started mimicking those movements that was done by those horses, and particularly that white stallion. From that evolution continued. That's what I've been told. What does it mean to be a nephew to Gus McDonald?
For me, it's something good that I can't lay my finger on. Uncle Gus, Donde Nakuge, was blessed in an immeasurable way as a chief's son. And for me to go through that is a blessing. To each one of us are blessed by the Ponca blood in us.
To us, he was just Negi. He was kind,
Yeah.
He was gentle. He never said one bad word about another human being.
No, he
Not
was good-hearted.
one.
As long
Ever.
as I can remember.
Never. There was no jealousy, there was no meanness. He lived in gratitude and prayer, and his life was hard. He had hard times. But I'll tell you, as his niece, when we were young, at least for myself, he was just that. He was Negi. He was the one that you could go to. He could cook real good. We're always proud of him as a fancy dancer, always proud of him as a straight dancer, as a teacher. But I want to remind everyone, our great-grandpa had 5 songs. It's the only Ponca I know that had 5 songs. One is kept right now. And then to grow up and to think, okay, who's the originator of ballet? Who's the originator of tap dance? Who's the originator of the waltz? Who's the originator of the line dance? Only one person is the originator of the fancy dance, and that's Augustus Hurley McDonald, Shangiska. I don't know if either one of you were there at the last time he danced. I know that the Powwow Committee plans on having a Gus McDonald Day on Sunday. But there was a Gus McDonald Day that happened in, I believe, 1972. It could have been 1973. Our forest removal, by the way, was on May 21st. This very day was the day that our people started that long trail of tears, this very day that we're sitting here. And our great-grandparents, our Grandpa Lewis, and so many others were on that forest removal. Our grandpa was 6 years old on that and walked those 700 and some miles down here. So Negi, when he got down here, he still had, when he was born here, still had all of those old ways. And so when it came time, he was beginning to get to that age, you know. He would have been 75, I believe. So at this particular dance, on the last dance of the last night of Gus McDonald Day and that powwow, they took pity on him because he was an old man. He'd lived a rough life. And he started dancing, and they could see that he was capable of dancing. And then it got faster. And then it got fast, and Negi was still dancing, keeping beat for beat. Everybody in every stand and every chair was up, and the were going on in the war hoops. And when it came to the end of that song, he did a cartwheel and landed with his hands in the air like this. He did that at that age. And that was just magical, never forget it in my life, or I don't want anyone else to. Another story Mama talked about was after he won up at Haskell Institute, he used to be taken here and there by different tribes, and he went back to our Omaha relatives up north. And when he went to dance there, women and men came out and they'd throw down a blanket they'd throw down a shawl. They'd throw down blankets. They'd throw down shawls because they didn't want his feet to even touch the ground. They just wanted to honor him that way. And they took care of him. They fed him. That's how much this means to our people.
Mama, she lived down there. She camped in pitch camp, and that's where we grew up. And Uncle Gus, they were really close, like I said, and my dad traveled to find work. And so we'd be out in California on a job, and then Uncle Gus would turn up and he'd go out and work with us, and we'd go in the fields or in the trees, harvesting. Yeah. And he was just a cheerful guy. When I first got out of Haskell, I joined a traveling magazine crew. And I went around the country, and wherever I went, I always went with the Indians. And they'd say from Oklahoma, say, yeah, traveling Ponca. Do you know Gus McDonald? And I mean, in New York or Washington, California, whoever it was, they knew who Uncle Gus was, and that to me is amazing, because in those days, he was Koubay.
Yeah, he was that. Koubay, by the way, means to have that medicine. He had that medicine.
He really did.
Yeah.
Everybody
and you
loved him.
remember, brother, when he came to California, when we were in Porterville, it was because Disney had signed him. And he didn't want to stay in LA and be a movie star or anything like that. And so he hitchhiked up to Porterville when we were there in the San Joaquin Valley.
But my earliest memories of him was going over to East Timber, and I wanted a bow. He was going to make me my first real bow. We walked hours looking at little trees. He finally selected one that was like a little fence post or something. But he took it home, he took the tree down, took it home, and he made a real bow.
Mama said that he made his bows out of Osage orange.
Yes, that's right. You know what he would say? He would say, I would say, well, how about that one? He said, no, I'm going to get a ironwood. And that's what that is.
Yeah.
It's that iron.
Yeah.
Uncle Gus danced up there at Haskell Institute in Lawrence, Kansas, when they dedicated the Haskell Stadium. At happenstance, I was the first class to live in Tinker Hall, which was built into the stadium. I didn't realize that it was an honor to me. And Uncle Gus stopped me at the door with him and Mom and them sending me off. And he said, now when they ask you, what tribe are you? And everybody asks at Haskell, what tribe are you? You don't say Ponca. You say, Punky! And I said just like that.
I remember my dad and my grandpas and them talking about them 101 days. They said sometimes maybe they have 100,000 people that would come for the rodeo. I guess it was like a little village within itself. They had exotic animals, they did all kind of stuff, and rodeo was kind of the main thing, but they put on shows. And because they were next to our tribe here, Poncas, they would get them over there to dance, to put on a show for all the people. A lot of the people that would come, the public would come from the east, from New York, eastern states, who thought, Indians were no more, that we were the vanished race, but we were still here. The way we danced, we have songs for every type of situation in our dance. Miller brother asked them to kind of make it more exciting. So they start singing some of our songs, like our charging songs or warrior songs, and so they would pick up the pace and dance, and that's what they liked at. To them, they thought Indians were charging or something, so that's how it got started. So naturally, with the contest, powwow contesting, I believe evolved because of more people starting to dance. And through that 101 ranch deal, I always kind of use them as the impetus for everything exploding and getting real popular among other tribes, just like our fancy dance evolved from that,
I think our songs, we can be proud of them. We can be proud and say it started right here. Dr. Howard, in fact, in insisted that the powwow idea begun here in Kay County, over at 101 Ranch. So the Miller brothers, I always attribute them to making the fancy war dance costume, because in their records it said, put a lot of feathers on there. The people coming from back east, they want to see Indians with feathers. And so the Indians obliged them and made a great big bustle, which used to be a small jaw about that big. You know, it was what we call a crow belt. Gosh, I mean,
Then they started making the costumes more elaborate. To me, that was the kind of the birth of it, for fancy dance. And that's what they called it, that, fancy dance, because they started dancing more elaborate and faster, you know.
Our grandma was the first one to design the first fancy dance outfit in that period of time. And Negi, he wore feathers standing up, he wore feathers here. And that was all part of his design because they wanted to be the flashiest, fanciest that there was.
Today's powwow evolved from our old ancient ceremonial, what we call Heloshka.
Heloshka is a traditional organization of Ponca men, and it is a society, a fraternal society of good men. That's the closest definition that I got from the elders. That Heloshka is not a dance, it's a society or a fraternal organization of good men. And they get together and they bring in little kids, they feed them, and they teach them the social values, ethical values, the ethos of the tribe, and they would dance. And they would sing these Heoshka songs that concern conditions again back up north. They told the history of what happened.
Everything Indians do, there's a beginning point. So if a person would just ask whoever it may be, a different tribe up north or whoever, somebody would ask, you know, well, where does powwows come from? Hopefully they'll research it back and come back to us because we are the ones that it originated from.
There's a phrase that always, whenever you come back home and you hear the powwow going on down there, and the phrase is distant fires and ancient music, because we have been singing those songs. Now, the scientists are getting the more advanced methods of dating things, and we've always been here. We didn't come over from Asia or anything else. We have always been here. Our children need to be taught that we had great societies, and we didn't just get here. We've always been here. We'll always be here.
People from long ago, even in Bible times, there was a drum used, and I think in the Old Testament they mention it, a number of instruments that they used, but they always used a drum. But the drum seemed like it was a medium by which you kept a tempo, you know, of the music that you were presenting, and probably might have been a common practice worldwide, but with Native people on this continent, it seems that they always used a drum to do that. And
I had one anthropologist research just the dance, just the Ponca dance itself, and he traced it back to 250 years BC. So you think about that, 250 years before Christ, we dance, just dance. I don't know of any other tribe that can claim that. So that's something that we as Ponca people are proud of. I'm proud of, because I know that history.
What I remember very clearly is the way people camped down there on the powwow grounds, and everybody lived in a tent, a box tent. People who had lived there also.
We used to live down on those campgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just...
Tent City.
Yeah, yeah, it was wonderful and powerful. We ate together, we ran together.
that was the only home they had. You know, there was probably about 4 or 5 families that lived in that wooded area there.
My earliest memories was probably, I would put the year probably about 1958, 59, and I remember the area around it was much different than it is today. Cause we had the natural spring waters, and there was where we camped at on the right south of the south bleachers. It was my grandpa's camp. We all camped around that area, and there used to be like a ditch there where we had to cross over when it would rain. I remember they would put boards across so we could step across.
Probably when I was about 5 years old. That'd be around 1954. We camped every year behind the South Arena, but I remember quite a few, families camped around that area.
I was probably about 4, and my grandmother made me a new tea dress for me to dance in. I remember that Grandma was always having me help her with something or other while we were there. We always camped at the powwow. My grandma and grandpa would take furniture out of the house to go down there. They'd take their ice box, they'd take their bed to put in the tent. But we've camped there every year. We've never given up that camp spot. I feel like that was my grandfather's, William Collins' spot, and it might have been his parents' spot. I don't know. All I know is we've been there forever.
I went down to the Power Grounds with my grandmother and grandfather because we do have a established camping area that has been there for generations there in the South Arena. At that point in time, they would butcher a beef, and all the women, they would get out there with their knives and be cutting their meat, butchering that cattle. And I remember my grandmother having that tripe, and I had to carry it back over to the camp to clean it. And she said, don't clean it really good, just leave some of the good stuff in there. You know, I'm 71 years old, so that was when I was about 5 years old.
Being a kid, you're just running around and not dancing, that's about it. I think about the families, the ones I grew up with, that whole timber area where White Eagle is. We had paths where we'd go to a swimming hole. There was a spring down there, and it was constructed of rock. It was round, oval shape. And when we were kids, we'd come down there and we'd drink water from that spring. I reminisce being, down there and seeing how much change it has made. What little that I know, I wish I would have been more open-minded, and I wish I would have paid more attention to my dad. And I wish I would have paid more attention to being able to ask him questions.
My first memory that I can come up with is after we were part of the Relocation Act in the 1950s. So it would have been when I was around 7 years old, the first time I can really remember. I was the youngest of 6, so I had these wonderful protectors and a whole bunch of grandmas, aunties, and mamas that saw to it that I behaved well. I just remember the drum, the sound, the feeling of being among family and being us, being Ponca. Not how they made me feel in the schools or in the cities, but just being Ponca and feeling good about it and enjoying ourselves.
I think that my earliest memories was Uncle Gus was in it. Mom and he were really close. And I can remember the most fun time that a kid can have was running with the pack at under the bleachers. He was getting decrepit, but he was still out there dancing, and he's part of my earliest Ponca powwow era memories.
The South Arena, from what I've been told, when we first was placed down here, when the Poncas got moved down here to where we're at now. But that little section of that South Arena was kind of the headquarters, or an agency was built around that. So a lot of our old ceremonies, and not only dance ceremonies, but other ceremonies, like when we give our Indian names, or we have a pipe dance, or other type of dances that we had, other type of ceremonies would be performed in that little area right there. Naturally, when we danced, from that point on, we just used that big arena, what we call the North Arena. But we kept our South Arena, tried to keep it for just our continue with our little ceremonial dances and our songs. And the main arena, the big arena, we would do that, just have that just for nothing but just dancing, because we like to dance. Our Ponca people, we're a dancing people. During the youth time, it was watching the parents, the family, putting up camp, getting things ready. Of course, the children, we just played. And the good thing about it, we would see, probably that with every family, but a lot of our families, after they would get the camp set up, they would all sit around and talk, visit.
My mom's, one of her favorite memories that she liked to tell about was when I was a little bitty baby, a new baby, Grandfather Eagle, I can't remember which one of those two brothers, Simon, held me up in the air and held me all four directions and gave me that Uncle Gus's name, which was Shangiska. Mom loved that story.
For one thing, I know we don't stay down there all the week like we used to when we were young, or even months, because that was the culmination of everybody's garden. The McDonalds, and I'm sure you know this, had a big truck garden across the river over there. We brought stuff, different people brought stuff, everybody would share what they had. Every camp, you could go from camp to camp and eat at any one of them, and everybody would know you. And if they didn't know you, they were still your boss. They were still your mamas, your daddies, your aunties, your uncles. They still were your caretakers, and they made sure you were okay.
Usually the week before our celebration, we go out there and make sure the grass and everything is all cut, and then the boys go out and set up the camp. We make sure that the tables and there's going to be food provided every day for any guest or anyone that's coming through.
It's open to anybody who walks by, and if they're watching us, we ask them, do you want to come eat? That's the way we were taught. Anyone is welcome to come eat with us.
I think everybody does that, during the powwow. You invite different people, guests, like you see somebody walking by, you tell them to come eat. It's a good time, Makes you feel good to invite people, when they come eat with you.
When they got ready to do something, the man used to holler. The last guy to do that, his name was Tom Primo. He's an old man, he wore braids, he was real slim, but he rode a spotted horse. And he used to start way from the south side down there. He used to start down that way, and he used to holler. I can still remember him hollering, hey, 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 hey. Then he'd talk. He'd say, hey, how much hey, hey, and he's saying, all of you on our side, all of them on our side, make your tents clean, make your yard clean. He said, people are going to come and they're going to see us. Watch your children. Make sure they're safe. We go down to the river to swim. Did you know that you could go down the Arkansas River and you could see to the bottom? That river, that's how clean it was. And did you know that the name of the Arkansas River, we call it Niska, white water. After the Second World War, we could have called it dirty water.
Well, my earliest memories, there was a little community at White Eagle. And my dad was an MC for many, many years. And some of the people that came to the powwow was invited, let's say, was the Apache fire dancers from, I don't know, Arizona, out there somewhere, New Mexico. And that was one of the earliest I can remember.
We had special guests come in. I remember the Apache fire dancers, the ghost dancers, the Aztecs, but those were the ones that I was impressed with.
The only teepee that went up was on the west side, and I think Horse Chief Eagle had that teepee up there. And he was designated, as the old traditional principal chief of the tribe. It goes south, and there's a kind of high cliff there, and that's where the rock crusher was. And on that hill there, that's where the Cheyennes used to camp out all along the top there. And then way on the northeast side of that current parking area, as it comes east from that bleacher, on that corner there, in that area, the Osages used to camp there. And of course, they were quite wealthy because of their oil resources, and they would bring these big circus tents, and set them up. And but they participated in the dances, of course, But I remember so well about the Osages and the Cheyennes, and I was very small at that time. The other thing that stands out in my mind is the people from Ponca City came to see the powwow, and they did that for years. But the cars that came from Ponca City, you wouldn't believe. The cars were lined up all down a highway. You could see them, and we used to, all us young guys, watch. Look, they're lining up now. And you could see them just lining up all the way down that road. You look out from the grounds there, all the way back as far as you could see. The cars from town were coming down to see the powwow.
Well, the changes, you might say, are subtle changes that probably a lot of people don't realize and see, but which I see now as I reflect back.
During the day, they'd start off, and I don't think they did this too often, but they used to do what they called a brush dance. The brush dance was a borrowed dance from the Kiowas, and it was a popular social dance. At night, they called it the 49.
You hear that drum beat, boy. Boy, and somebody would holler, they would start singing, starting the 49 song. Everybody hollering, and all the young ones that's walking around and they're visiting, or it'd be like a moth drawn to a light. That drum was out there at the 49 song. And when they start up and they'd dance. They would just all go round and round and round.
But that was done after the powwow was over. It was a social dance with young people. But they used to start down out toward the arena from the southwest corner, Itakata. That's what they call it, southwest, Itakata. And they would cut branches so big, and the ladies would carry them. The men would sing and they'd dance, kind of walking, coming down that road there, then up some of the current roads that come by the south arena there, and then they eventually ended up at the powwow ground.
I had to brush up even on what's happening today, and found out that we have lost a lot of our individual or family celebrations, or what we'd done before the groups that were formed back in the day. Whether they went with one family, had to continue that on.
The celebration of the drum has never been lost. It is the drum of power, it is the drum of truth, it's the drum of dreams.
That drum also, when you talk about that being the consistency in our lives, and Harry Buffalo had recorded over 1,000 songs that are in the Smithsonian, and when they were made and who made them. And so many of our people know those kind of things. So that drum has that way, because not only that, but it has new ways. New songs are being made, new histories are being laid inside that drum. And so that is the consistency. What's changed is only 100 or 500 other things that have changed. My mama used to teach us that we're a people who evolve and a people who change. And so new kinds of outfits are being made, new ways of dancing. Well, Mama was one of the first women fancy dancers because she was taught by Uncle Gus, but that wasn't part of our original ways either. And so a few things like that have come into our everyday dances. The other thing that I've noticed is that different tribes used to be very easy to spot. Ukite had different outfits, yeah, and now you see everybody kind of trying to dress the same.
I could look out into the arena and see all of our other tribes that were there, and we could distinguish which tribe was which by the way they were dressed. Nowadays, that's no longer. Everything has incorporated into a simple tea dress, jingle dress, fancy shawl, whereas, you know, everything, and you can't tell who's who out there anymore. And we're all becoming one nation because it seems like it's turning into a melting pot and there's no longer a distinguished tribe.
Well, the crowd's gotten bigger. Prize money now, I remember when they used to dance just for trophies. There was no money involved, but it seems like the last maybe 25, 30 years, there's money, you know, been involved in here lately a lot.
Powwow committees back in them days, whether it was a tribe or organization, they didn't have the funds that they have nowadays. They more or less put emphasis on feeding, you know, giving out rations to campers, and big money back there was like $50 first prize, $25 second, and $15 for third. Heck, that was good enough. And now each tribe is so competitive for dancers, it just kind of become a competition. The more money you put up, the more dancers you're going to get, and I think that kind of is not good, but you can't stop it now.
There's been a lot of culture brought in from different tribes that the younger Poncas have incorporated into their dancing. And it kind of saddens me because I see our Ponca ways in the arena kind of disappearing. Also, the two-step. Since it's 150th, I would like to see the traditional two-step, and if they don't know how to do it, I will gladly show them.
We know how to do it.
You too?
We know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think when men and women go out to the drum, I've seen this, not so much here, Ponca. I've seen people wearing shorts, mini skirts. That just don't look good.
That's a
you know,
no-no.
that's to me disrespectful. You're not respecting that drum. You know, I think when you go out there, you need to dress appropriately.
I see these younger singers going out now in t-shirts, jeans, caps on, and I feel like if you're going to go out there and sing, then respect the drum by dressing accordingly.
So because of convenience, they dress in shorts and t-shirts and tennis shoes and all that, but our people, we always dress up. We try to dress because to us, we're getting around the spirit of that drum, and that spirit will recognize us. Just like anything else, if you were to meet God or meet Jesus or meet the Holy Spirit, you'd want him to look at you at your best. So we want to be our best and look our best when we get around the drum. So those are the protocols that I hope it keeps on going. The dance part is the same way. I hope our future dancers respect when they put the clothes on, respect that now, even though they're who they are, but they represent something too. They represent their past. They represent their ancestors. They represent their family.
There's old dances that we don't do because them old singers didn't bring them with us, you know. That's what I believe. Because if they did, we'd be singing them now.
But the importance of what you're doing today and what we're trying to gather from our other elders is that it's important for our little ones. It's important for them, and somehow to let them, or even get together with them. And I've seen more of that taking place in these last 5 years with our Ponca people, and it needs to be, you know, continued.
100 years from now, and a young Ponca looks at this video, what do you want to say to that child that's 100 years down the road?
That's a good question.
Powerful question.
Yeah, I think that we're saying these words for you and for your children and for your children's children. You can go down to Ponca Powwow because of what we're doing today and what other elders have done, and remember who you are. Ponca.
I would echo what he said about remember who you are. We were told that all our lives, no matter where we lived or what shape our lives were in. Remember who you are. To know who you are means to not only to know the names, but to know their stories. And to try to understand what is it that you're going to contribute to keep the Ponca ways alive. Because Wakanda gave us this great gift of life. We are a people of oral tradition. Go ask those questions. Go do your research. Remember who you are. And if you forget, there's always someone here at home that you can ask that will claim you.
My advice for the future generations to preserve the history of the Ponca would be to learn about it. You know, learn the history, where it comes from. Everything that we do as Poncas, there's original stories to it, original beginnings to it. And that's what I would hopefully like to see us preserve that, you know, and not just to know about it, but to feel it and preserve it.
Well, I probably would say, just like I would talk to my grandkids, you know, tell them that what's happening today and the information you're seeing, you're reading, pay close attention to each individual that gets up there and makes a statement. I try to tell the young ones, be truthful in what you want to do and what you want to be and what you want to become, because that's the most important thing to the individual's mind.
I'd say stick as close as you can to, you know, the culture. It's got to be taught, and I think it is. We're different from the way we were 25, 30 years ago.
I would hope that they remember who they are, that they're Ponca. Even if they're just the 8th Ponca or a 16th Ponca, they would be proud of who they are, that they came from a distinguished tribe that tried to keep their traditions alive. I would hope that they would want to dance, that they would watch videos to learn to dance if they hadn't ever. I would like to see the younger generation carry our learnings forward. I really would. I don't want it to be forgotten.
I just want all my grandkids, great-grandkids to come, all of them to be able to participate in our traditions that we are holding right now. Our language is one of our things that we're losing. You know, I don't want this to happen with our dancing and our songs and stuff. We're trying to keep those alive by recordings and CDs.
I would say, first of all, you must realize that God created us in a certain fashion. Our minds work in a certain way. In my way, I see things in groups. They all contain certain amounts of information. And that information that I received that's in those groups, sometimes you will find great truths in it, and sometimes there are some things that are not so true. You may see some things that you practice now that were never considered during my time or even before my time. I guess just retaining our culture and doing our best to keep it and trying to influence people to get back something and try to get as original as you can. There are some tribes that just disappeared, you know, on the face of the earth, you know. Hope that never happens to us.
What's gone? That means get it. Stay strong in whatever you do. And a lot of guys are different. A lot of them are more into education, which there's nothing wrong with that. What's gone, even in that, whatever you do, get it, go get it. So I would encourage that to whatever they want to be, to try and succeed.
As long as if they're Ponca children, They want to keep the tradition going, you know. That's why I say you always depend on your elders. Their great-grandfather sang with me, you know, or danced with one of these champion dancers. It'd be up to them to, you know, guide them along if they want to do that.
I have had the honor of getting to know some of the tribal leaders, some of the tribal members, and having them share the history of the Ponca tribe, the struggles that they've gone through, and where they've come today as a tribe. And they've accomplished so much, and I think they have so much to be proud of. And over the past couple of years since I've become mayor, I've tried to really build on that relationship between the city and the tribe. And I just look forward to all the projects that we can do together, and I look forward to that partnership for years to come.
On behalf of the Ponca Tribal Business Committee, I want to extend a heartfelt welcome to everyone. All of our Poncas, please come home and share this time with your families, with your relatives, your friends, and distant relatives, all the neighboring tribes. You're welcome. And non-natives as well. We invite you all to come and share in our culture.
The best.
That's the best.
2 words. Legacy is for me.
Non perde.
Family.
Mm-hmm.
Same, family.
Yeah, it's kind of like a family reunion.
Mm-hmm.
We see people that we haven't seen
For years.
Yeah, for years, and they come back.
Celebration. It's not a powwow. It's a celebration. We celebrate life.
Ponca powwow, it's a good one. It is a good one. It's where champions meet champions. So we're always glad to boast that. And it's true. It's not like somebody just happened to come up with a slogan.
One of the things we boast besides our singing is the right to crown a world champion every year. The saying goes, where champions meet champions. In order to be a fancy dance champion, you have to win it at White Eagle Park here in Oklahoma. So we invite fancy dancers from across the country. You're welcome. There's a place for you. There's a seat open at our table. God truly has blessed our people, and we're proud of it. And our elders are proud of it. And it's something that I hope that our future generations are proud of also.